It's really cool that Dragon Quest is in this renaissance where they've got all these different titles coming out recently over the last few years here, and a bunch of them are from different style genres or different parts of the series. Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3 HD remakes. They've got Dragon Quest 8 reimagined. They had Dragon Quest Treasures, Dragon Quest Monsters, Dragon Quest Dai was in there, for better or worse, even though I love the series, but the game, whatever. And there's, I believe, a couple more in there as well. And all of this on the heels of Dragon Quest 11, while we are awaiting the release of Dragon Quest 12, which is coming whenever the heck, man. But another thing that it recently was announced, and that we're going to talk about in today's video, is Dragon Quest Smash Grow. I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about the mobile game. And man, okay, so you may remember, I'm a big fan of Dai. I covered A Hero's Bond, the other mobile game centered around Dragon Quest Dai, extensively here on the channel. I think Square, just in general with Dai and their Dragon Quest games, really fumbled very quickly. The console game, they had to redo it, and that threw off the entire timeline for it. It was supposed to come out when the anime was airing, and it was supposed to be part of this like all around assault for Dragon Quest Dai with the anime, a mobile game, and a console game. And this all just did not line up properly. I covered A Hero's Bond, and it was a ton of fun. It was an entirely different style of game. Still, I don't really see games like that, the way that one was designed gameplay wise. But inevitably, it ended shortly after the anniversary, right? And that is a pretty common practice for these mobile games, where whether it's the first anniversary or fifth anniversary, it doesn't matter. They typically like to try to get to that milestone, an anniversary or a half anniversary, that 6-month mark, before they shut the game down, because they get that last little bit of revenue, and then they shut the game down because they've probably already made their decision at that point. And that's just a pretty common thing. And so that game shut down, and there have been a number of other games that Square has flat out canceled or just flat out closed ends of service shortly after. I mean, I don't think Square at all has a very good track record for mobile games, period. Now, that being said, that's a little bit of an open scale here, because there's a lot of companies that you could look at and say, well, there's not a lot of different, they don't have a lot of longevity, because the lifespan for these games in general isn't very long, right? Because it's so competitive a market, and they all want all your time, they all want all your money, and even if they want to be a casual experience or whatever, they still want all your money regardless to keep the game up and running, right? And so with that being the case, Square has released a lot of games, and they've closed a lot of games. They've had some games, like some of the Final Fantasy games and stuff like that, that have lasted a good amount of time, or 3-4 years, and they've had that, right? But there have also been games, again, that have lasted a short amount of time. So that's where the main pessimism is with this. Everyone is just basically saying on all the social posts, you guys are going to close this game after a year. Because that's just what if Square Enix is attached to it, that is just what people are going to say. Here's the kicker, though. K-Lab is a company known for developing mobile games. They're co-developing this title. So K-Lab is interesting because nowadays they've not been able to find the next big thing. So what they do is they do a lot of co-developing and licensing out as opposed to like running their own game. But you may know them. They run Bleach Brave Souls. They've got about 10 years on that game. I believe it is currently the 10-year anniversary, which is a great milestone in this market, period. Point blank, that is a great milestone. Frankly, 5 years is probably a great milestone. But they're another one of these companies. Like I said, there's not a lot that you can really rely on, but they're another one where it's like they just kind of close games pretty fast too. So here we have this situation where it's like, what do we really have to expect here? So on the topic of Smash Grow, pessimism aside, it is a mobile game coming out. This one's pretty cool. It's a roguelite RPG, which is different from the traditional JRPG format that Square uses. Frankly, Square's been really experimental with a lot of different things with their styles of games recently, the genres that they've been trying to do recently, so it's been pretty cool. Other than that, this is a roguelite game, like I was explaining, and so what that means is that it's going to focus more on action-based, randomized experiences, and players will smash their way through hordes of monsters to build up power for special coup de grace attacks. They also collect crystals from defeated enemies to grow their character's strength. As a roguelite, the game will feature blessings, which are randomly chosen skills that enhance your character's growth and strategies, ensuring no two quests are the same. So you've probably seen or experienced roguelite in some way, shape, or form. A lot of games will now have it as like a side mode, for example, in there, a roguelite mode. And obviously, it's a genre in and of itself. There's roguelike games. But basically, as you progress, once you clear a stage, it'll present you with blessings in this case, and there'll be a variation of multiple things. Like, I don't know, let's just throw some random stuff out there. First one, there'll be 3, right? First one, you'll get 10 speed. Second one, you'll get 30 attack but lose 5 defense. Or the last one, you'll get X passive and maybe this or that will happen. Like, that's kind of what it is. So you just collect which one you want, then move on to the next, and then from there, same deal. You just keep going until you get the end, right? That is the style. And again, games handle it differently based on what you're doing, but that is the general sentiment of it. Again, K-Lab is co-developing this game. It's expected to release simultaneously globally in 2026. That is pretty big. A lot of these games release in Japan only. Frankly, Dragon Quest games, a lot. It's like they love just dropping them in Japan only. But that's huge, because the reason why they do that is so they can test the market, right? Because if the game's going to flop and flounder in the Japanese market, they basically say, no, it's not going to do anything globally. But it's going to release simultaneously. So that is actually a good thing. That tells me that there is some level of confidence and faith in this game. It'll be available on both Android and iOS, of course. It's a free-to-play game with in-app purchases, as you would expect. They are running a closed beta test, which I will be doing videos on if I get accepted, in just about a month. So October 14th through October 21st. Pre-registrations are live and will be running until October 2nd. Square is also running a special giveaway campaign on the game's official X account and Facebook pages from September 19th to September 26th, offering prizes like a metallic monster gallery and a slime plush. So that's pretty cool. So I am interested in that. I do think it sounds really cool. I just like everyone else, am a bit pessimistic. Like, I would get into this and get into it just for the love of the game. Literally and honestly, because as a Dragon Quest fan, it's another thing you can associate with and can play. Now, inevitably, some people will say it's a mobile game, gotcha slot, blah, 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 I'm not going to touch it, and I can understand, right? I can understand. But regardless, I think, again, it will have a level of originality, and even if it has that stuff, I hesitate to kind of just, talk too down on it just because it's a mobile game. A lot of these games it depends on like how they're monetizing it. Like, obviously they are going to have in-app purchases, but what is the monetization on that? Like, are you going to be buying gacha pulls for accessories, characters? Like, what are you doing? Right? Are they going to find a way to weave in the other protagonists and characters throughout the series? Like, what are we doing here? So we need more information on that personally, but I will say one other thing that is interesting is, nowadays, and this is not fully adopted across the board, but it is something that is popping up more and more. We are seeing games that, while they kind of are like performing, like just kind of whatever in the global market, they're performing exceptionally well in the Japanese market. Traditionally, what that meant was they would shut down the global server and keep the Japanese server going. Now, here's an example of that. Dragon Quest Tact. That is another Square Enix Dragon Quest mobile game. That game ended just about a little over a year ago. So actually, that game launched globally January 27th, 2021, and ended February 29th, 2024. My God, time flies. Jeez. My God, time flies. It's been a year and a half. Anyway, jeez, man. Anyway, and that's another game where, by the way, just after anniversary, a month after that anniversary, they ended the game. Which tells me they probably announced the end of service just after anniversary, like a week later. That is such a common practice. It's so funny. It happens every time. I'm always like super anxious when a game is approaching anniversary. I know it's not doing great. Anyway, but nowadays, if the game is kind of not doing great, they're more open to keeping the game up if it is doing great overseas, and that will fund basically the global version, and the global version can keep going from there. There are other games, like particularly some Bandai titles right now, that I know are not performing super great globally just because they're IPs that are humongous in Japan, but don't have that same oomph here. I like the IPs, no names, but you can look at Bandai's list of games and stuff like that. You can even go to Sensor Tower and see how some of their games are performing. Not Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's fine. Anyway, So there are games like that where that's kind of a thing where they will do that. And the fun thing about those is that they will actually also celebrate rewards from the Japanese side to the global side. Like if the game reached on the Japanese side #1 grossing, because it certainly isn't going to do that on the global side because it doesn't have the juice, that reward will be pushed across. Anniversary will be celebrated between both versions because it's a global launch, like a worldwide launch. Anyway, so you get the point. So more and more of these are willing to do that. And if Square is willing to do that with this, and that is humongous, right? I have to go back and look at how Ever Crisis is performing. But I will say it's interesting that they're trying to publish another mobile game, because around the time Ever Crisis came out, there was actually an article, maybe shortly after Ever Crisis came out, saying that basically they were going to divert all attention to just console experiences because all their mobile games just were flopping, right? And so they put everything mobile-wise into Ever Crisis and are just trying to keep that going, right? So I have to go back and see how that's doing, but that is interesting. I guess maybe I perceive that as them being mostly done. And they even canceled that Kingdom Hearts game as well. That was kind of going to be coming out too. So I'm surprised that Dragon Quest is the one that's going to kind of pop through here. Maybe they've released something else. But anyway, surprised it's Dragon Quest. But really what it is they are approaching Dragon Quest and trying to attack this series from all angles right now. Like I mentioned earlier, they tried something similar with Dai, and it didn't perform the way they wanted for multiple reasons. But here they are with all of this series this time. They're saying, here's Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3. Here's Dragon Quest 8. Obviously 11. By the way, all their games are like on sale right now on platforms too. If you haven't played them, go play 11. And a bunch of other ones are all great. To varying degrees. Some of them aren't really available, but you get my point. Anyway, so they're trying this now, and maybe that's why this is happening here. And they're really trying to just push Dragon Quest all across the board. And so I'll end on this. If you're a fan of the series, especially a long time fan, regardless of how you feel about mobile gaming, because with this video, I'm expecting it to maybe push outside of my normal audience. Regardless of how you feel about mobile gaming, the thing is, this is huge. It's anytime anything new comes out, that's huge. It's not a bad thing. It can't be a bad thing. The better it performs, the better the series is going to be received. That's huge because it's more eyes on the series as a whole. They may get 10 players and they may get 3 of those players. For every 10, 3 out of every 10 players may go check out one of the other games. Become a big time fan because they got introduced to it through this mobile game, right? And that's huge. And that's why companies try to do this. That is exactly why companies try to do this type of thing. You know, I talked about Dragon Ball earlier. Dragon Ball's got actually now 3 mobile games. One of them is a cross-platform game, the new one, Genshin Squadra. And obviously they've got a long list of console games. But the idea there is if we attack it from all angles, because some people only want to play a certain way, right? Maybe they'll be more willing to try other things. And so it's cool to see Dragon Quest getting that and them trying that here. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Stay tuned because I will be covering Smash Grow. I want to call it Grab so bad. I'll be covering Smash Grow here on the channel. So stay tuned, and I'll see you all later.